Hello and welcome to the Unique CPA with your host, Randy Crabtree. Today, we're kicking off a 3-episode block focusing on client accounting services with tips and tricks to help your firm tap into all the potential CAS has to offer. The Unique CPA is brought to you by TriMerit, the specialty tax professionals.
Today, our guest is Christine Triantos. Christine has been working in CAS. I'm not sure it was been called CAS her entire career, but what is now called CAS for nearly 30 years. She was a partner with BDO. She managed the national CAS technology team. In December of 23, she left BDO and she started her own thing, Infinite Advisors, which is a CAS consulting firm dedicated to helping firms grow and enhance their CAS practices. And then even further, in 2024, she launched Infinite Ties, which is a subscription-based membership for CAS practitioners. Man, I have a hard time saying CAS when I say sentences. Christine, welcome to the Unique CPA.
Thank you, Randy. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy you're here too. I think I should start just saying client advisory services instead of CAS. For some reason, how do I stumble over a 3-letter acronym? But that's all right. I gave you an intro there. You've been working in CAS for quite a while. Maybe give us a little more background on what you're doing, and then we'll kind of get into the CAS end of things a little more.
Sure. So, worked at BDO, started in 96. So however, I try not to count how many years ago that was. And within CAS, was an early adopter within CAS. So we just like to say we failed fast and, before everybody else did and learned all of our lessons. But then with BDO was the West Regional Partner. So just been in this space for a really long time. Also have taught the CAS workshop for CPA.com for the last 7 years. And so I just am able to talk to a lot of firms, understand what they need, why it's hard to stand up, and what their pain points are with standing up a practice. And so just decided I wanted to do something different and try something different at the age of 50. I thought, well, why not now? And so quit my job, which you know something about.
Oh, I've done that. Yep.
Yeah. You're like, is this a really good idea? I think it is. And so really just am passionate about helping people. If we can shave off that learning curve that we had for all those years, we're happy to do that and just hand people, tools and resources to just deploy their CAS teams and practices and help them grow. So that led us to Infinite Advisors, which is our CAS consulting company. And then along the way, too, just building Infinite Ties, which is a CAS subscription-based model for CAS practitioners. And I think a little bit of why we're different in that community, because I do know there's a lot of communities out there right now, is that we're really targeting all the way down to the staff level and not just CAS leaders, right? And so we have 4 different facets within Infinite Ties, which I think are really important to the industry. And one of them is a vendor corner, right? And so there's so many vendors to vet and to understand what they're doing. And there's a new one that comes out every single day. And so just bringing that to the community without having any revenue share. It's really just all of our vendors have asked, can we please revenue share? And I'm like, no, this is what's best for the community. And we're not losing sight of that. And then there's a forum, and then we have resources and documents, and then we have training for all levels. So we're really catering to that practitioner with the staff and upskilling those team members into advisors.
Nice. Advisor is obviously a hot topic, and advisory and CAS and TAS and whatever we want to add in there, or CAS with 2 A's, all the 2 and 3-letter acronyms. But let's get into that real quick, because advisory in general, you can get an idea of what it is. But when we talk CAS, everybody has their own, it feels like everybody has their own definition of CAS, which I don't know if that's good or bad. You could probably weigh in on that.
Yeah.
But how do you define CAS?
And it is interesting because consulting with a lot of firms, they think that they have a CAS department. And really, once we get in and start assessing, a lot of it is a write-up service or bookkeeping. And so evolving and moving into CAS is really about a couple of main facets. Number one, are you doing more than just closing their books? Are you providing proactive guidance? Are you giving them the consulting and advisory services that they need to run their business and not really just looking behind, reflecting on what happened last month or the month prior? And in addition to that, it's really a highly leveraged with technology, right? And if you're not using 15, 20 different tech products to take all of the manual processes out, create efficiencies, then you don't really have a true CAS department. It's high touch client service, it's every day. And so it just brings kind of a different facet than what's normally in a typical write-up practice. It's quarterly, it's at year end, it's for the purposes of tax returns. And this is really just coming in and saying, hey, we want to be basically your internal accounting team, even if they have some internal accounting staff. And we want to guide you and we want to take this out of your responsibility. This isn't why you started a company. It's probably not what you're good at.
Right.
And so let us do this and you run your business and go sell.
Yeah, well, you just said a bunch of things that I think are super important. One is that last one with especially business owners. They started their business for a reason because they're excited, they're passionate about their business, their product,
Right.
their service. They're not passionate about the accounting end of things. And so if we can take that off their plate, it's just going to make them more successful. So let me I just want to make sure if I learn there. So CAS is really more proactive. You're not a reporter, but you're going to impact what's going on, looking at it more often, the financial statements in whatever aspect. Technology being an aspect to it. If we can automate and make more efficiencies in there, we can spend more of our time advisory end of things and have a bigger impact on our clients. And it is not this quarterly or year-end meeting with the client, but it sounds like it's a highly interactive with the client on an ongoing basis. Anything I missed in there?
I mean, there's a lot, but no. I mean, for purposes of this short podcast,
Nice.
you summed it up nicely.
All right. Well, great. See, you're learning. You're learning. I'm learning. You're educating me already, which is actually, I told you 2 goals of the show is we educate the profession, but really one of that is educating me. So thank you for that. And then,
but if I could just if we go back to your point about CAS, right? And this is a really hot topic, right? What are we calling it?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just important to note, CAS is really becoming the terminology that's used and should be used because what we're trying to do is educate the general public on, okay, you have audit services, you have tax services, and now you have CAS. And so have we all called it something different along the way? Absolutely. We all wanted to be unique and, have our own thing. But at the end of the day, and, kudos to AICPA and CPA.com of coining this CAS, and this is what we're going to call it so that we're putting a stake in the ground with what the services are.
So when we say CAS, because CAS doesn't say, accounting in anywhere. So are we talking tax aspect to advisory as well?
We try to stay in our lane, but there is a lot of tax advisory that comes into play with CAS. However, though, as a practitioner, you know everything that's going on with that client, right? And so we always advise people, stay in your lane, but you have to be viewed as that trusted advisor to know what questions to ask, to know what to look for, to know when to bring in a tax expert with whatever it is that the client's dealing with. So yes, there's some aspects of that, but really, what we teach is you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be an auditor, you don't have to be a tax expert, but you need to know what to look for to bring them in at the right time.
Got it. And now when you're, let's say with your community or your consulting advisory, your advisory services to other people working in the industry, do people come to you and say, hey, I want to add CAS services? Do they normally already have a CAS practice? Where's your starting point with advisors?
Yep, that's a great question because it's really interesting, right? There are a lot of firms that don't have anything and they're starting CAS from the ground up. That seems to not be the case. What seems to be more common is they do have a write-up or bookkeeping practice. And so where firms get stuck is they say, I want to convert that. I'm like, okay, 2 separate practices, right? And we say this all the time. Doesn't mean that those clients are going to convert into CAS. And it doesn't mean that the team members that you're servicing that business line with are also going to convert into CAS. And so, what we teach is let's just create this business model from staffing and pricing and your engagement letters and scope of services as if you were going to sell it tomorrow. Because where firms get stuck is they try to say, well, but I have all of these clients and how can I repaper them, reprice them? How can I create this value proposition to them? And I'm like, that's the wrong starting point.
Okay. And so let's dig deeper into that. So, well, no, let's go this way. Because one of the key things is when they're starting or trying to expand it or take the next step in their evolution of their firm. You talked about the fact that one of the things you help with is the technology end of things and determining the vendors, the apps they should be working with. That's an area where I see a lot of people shutting down. Like, I don't know. Who am I going to use? How am I going to do this? What do my clients need? Is that something you run into a lot? And how do you help them through that process?
Yeah, it is. And so, and having taught the workshop for that many years too, that seems to be the biggest hurdle to your point, right? I mean, it's just hard. People are like, I'm really good at accounting, but now you're going to throw all this software and technology at me. And that's not really, my expertise. And so we just recommend you always have to have a tech champion. That tech champion may not be an accountant, but they need to know how to stand up the products. They need to know the administrative back end of it, implementation. And so that tech champion is key in building a really great CAS practice. And I tell people, if you don't have a tech champion, don't be afraid of that because, all of these vendors have really great support. So you're going to learn along the way. Now, where we come in with Infinite Advisors and how we work with our vendors that we work really closely with too is just to say, let us come in and implement this for the firm so that they're not having to learn all of this on top of their already tight schedule, zero capacity, and they'll learn the technology along the way. But they don't need to do this. Let's make it simple for them in order to use these products that are going to create great efficiencies without making it feel overwhelming.
And I think one of the things that comes to mind when we're talking about the technology, and you said, the 15 different things or whatever it is that they need to start analyzing or looking at, or you help them with, is it easier if we're looking at a CAS practice that is dealing with, let's say, a niche industry? Because then your tech stack or the technology you're using probably is more in line from client to client.
Yes. The more that firms can start to go down industry niches, obviously the better off they are, right? Even from the start of proposals and prospect assessments and how you service the client and the terminology that you even use within a prospect call and you are speaking their language. I mean, you've basically already won them, right? Before you've even presented anything. But yes, from a technology standpoint, industry specific niches, it's ideal. It's ideal. It's hard for a lot of CAS practices within firms to just have specific niches, but we just say you're still going to have some dominant niches, right? It doesn't mean you can say no to everybody else because they don't fit your model, but it is so important and it makes it so much easier because now you're not reinventing the wheel every time, implement a new technology. You're taking what you already know and you're taking templates that you're just now able to basically copy paste but edit it to specific clients.
Nice. And is there, and I'm sure it varies by niche or client or firm, but is there a common, hey, these are the 4 key things you need for every client, or here, or what's a common tech stack? You want to run through that real quick?
Oh, yes. I mean, we do have a common tech stack.
Okay.
Like I said, it can be substantial, but there's like just basic. And the majority of the CAS and even the write-up teams are using a lot of the technology. If you're looking at automated bill pay, it's bill, right? And so there's just a lot of efficiencies that go with that. You're looking at spend management, managing corporate credit cards, managing expense reports. So there's just a lot that goes with that. And those are just the basic, right? Having a really great ERP system. What are you using for combined consolidated financial statements? How are you bringing in third-party applications that make it easier? That And we teach too, a lot of the third party apps that you're bringing in, they seem similar, but this product does one thing and it doesn't do this, but this product does another thing and it doesn't do what the other product does. So now you're coupling these technology products together, but it's still cheaper and more efficient than if you were doing it manually, right? And so it's teaching pricing engagements properly with those added tech fees that come with it.
Yep. And I think that's one area where people create efficiencies with technology, but then don't price it correctly. I think that happens way too often. And so I was thinking of going somewhere else, but since we just brought up pricing, let's talk about that, because that's an area where I think there's a lot of education needs to happen. And so how do you talk about pricing?
When we go into pricing, and what we're teaching firms is you have to gain access to their financials and all of their books, their financial systems prior to sending a proposal and prior to engaging them. If you don't do that, you don't know what you're getting into, right? And so assessing everything, and what's great about gaining access before you engage into a long-term relationship with them is that you're also seeing what's wrong with their financials.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the gate, now you're advisory. Hey, we noticed all of these things. We put a whole page together of the items that we don't call it that to the client, but like areas of concern, right? And they think, wow, you already identified all of those things. That's fantastic. Now what we're doing is saying, okay, what's the trailing 12 months? Do they have seasonality? What's the transaction volume look like? We're touching absolutely everything. Are you going to need us to help you with invoicing? How many people are we going to have to bring into this process? What does that look like? So when it comes to pricing, I think it's really important that you do that prospect analysis, gain access to the financials, because my whole thought process and what we've learned is when you come out of the gate hourly, you're redirecting the value proposition for the client, right? Now they're not saying, wow, here's the value that they're bringing to me and bringing to the table. Now they're saying, how long did they spend on that? How many hours did they?
Right.
And so then when you go to convert them, and I say this all the time, when you go to convert them to a fixed fee, now you've lost that margin because they know how long it's taken, right? And the other major thing when it comes to CAS, because CAS is so highly leveraged with technology, what happens is when you're hourly, you create efficiency. Now you've just lost revenue and you've just lost margin. So it's really important the order in which you do these steps, because you have to get to that fixed fee, then you implement the technology and the efficiencies, and then that margin gain is yours. It's not necessarily the client's, benefit.
Yep. Oh,
even
no.
though they're benefiting.
They are benefiting.
Yeah.
I completely on board with that. I think that's a step that we miss way too often in our profession, that we have just been so ingrained with our value is selling an hour rather than our value is selling an outcome or a deliverable to the client. And so, yeah, pricing right and pricing, not feeling guilty about your pricing because you've saved time is important.
Well, and then when you price it in a fixed fee, then your clients are calling you more often, right? Because you do become that trusted advisor. And it's not about, gosh, if I call my accountant or my attorney, I'm going to get billed by the 10th of an hour.
Yep. And the problem with us too, as a profession, I'm generalizing, is we often ignore, even if we are billing for that hour, we ignore those calls, putting that on as a billable and this at least incorporates that in then.
Exactly. And you just want your clients to call you no matter what at any time. And
well, not 24/7 though, right?
Not any, you're right. Sorry. I mean anytime within the parameters and boundaries of the day, of the workday.
Well, let's talk about that then too, because with the pricing, I think that's probably a good segue. With the pricing, we are saying, yes, we're available to you, but we do have to still set boundaries. Is this something you talk about with boundary setting with clients?
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of basic, because we're all working late. We're all working on the weekends. I'm like, but just don't let that email go out till Monday morning, at 8:00. Don't answer do they have cell phone? Are they texting you? Are they calling you? What do those boundaries look like? And also too, when you're selling, especially CAS, because this is like I said, an everyday service model, as opposed to like a tax and audit type practice, right? This is every day, all the time. They're so dependent and reliant on you. But I'm just very adamant about firms saying real time. I'm like, nothing's real time. Even if you have a tech product that's connected, you might still have to push a button. And if you didn't push that button at every minute of the day, that's not real time. So, yes, there's a lot of boundaries there. But I do think in the model in which we set up and guide firms is being more face-to-face meetings with the client, because you don't want to be so far removed. And I think this is a very important aspect that we talk about a lot is, as practitioners, we make it look really easy and like it's just easy and we're doing so much behind the scenes. Well, that's not conveying value to the client. That's not substantiating our fees, right? And so how are we bringing this forward to clients to display and demonstrate the value in everything that we're doing? So we intentionally overly communicate in our statement of work that's part of the engagement letter. You know how much we do for you? This is how much we do for you.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's just that whole value proposition when I just am like, just don't make it look so simple, even if it is simple for you.
Right. Oh, no, I agree completely. So as we've seen over the years that, obviously CAS has been a fast growing area. It's being talked about. It's probably one of the most common things I hear being talked about out there. And with this growth and everything, I'm guessing, especially when we're looking at the pipeline issues and people being concerned about, can I get people in? How do you advise on that? Because are people maybe getting ahead of themselves and saying, I got staff before I add this? Or is there a different solution than that?
Yes, so many rabbit holes to what you just asked, right? And we could be here. I love this, and we could be here till tomorrow, but I'll try to like condense that into something.
Go as long as you want. I'm fine.
But, so CPA.com does this amazing CAS benchmark survey. And so that just recently came out. But what it's showing is double-digit growth for the last 6 years. It's showing that net client fees per professional for top performers have increased by nearly 30%.
Wow.
From 2 years ago, from the survey from 2022 to 2024. So that I think is significant, right? When you talk about fastest growing. So the work is out there. So many companies don't want this in-house. So many companies don't want the responsibility. So they are outsourcing this a lot. Then what happens is when you don't price these clients properly, you end up with this client base with a lot of maybe large clients or just various clients that have really low margins, right? And what we also consult firms on is some of these clients are actually costing you money. You're not even making money. At the end of the day, you're paying them to have them be a client. So, yes, is the industry resource constrained? Absolutely. We're all fishing out of the same pond. But instead of adding staff and instead of adding dollars to your expense, first reevaluate your existing client base. And I tell everybody too, when you get a really great new client, identify your low margin clients and have a conversation with them. It's like we call it like a breakup. Like, it's not you, it's me. Like, I totally priced you wrong. It's my fault. Here's what we're doing. Here's the value that we bring. I completely understand if you cannot double, triple your fees. I will help you find another firm and offboard you. We did not lose one client. They all agreed to the fee increases. Now it's just, how are you adjusting your client base to create capacity? Yep. Do you have the right technology in place to create capacity? For firms that are using offshore resources, how is that creating capacity in the right way and not in a fearful way? I think this is super, super important, Randy, is that when we have technology and we have offshoring, we create this fear factor for staff members of, well, am I going to have enough hours? I have budgeted billable hours. What am I going to work on? What am I going to do? So there's just so much that goes with that.
I can see the rabbit holes now.
Yep.
And that is. And that, boy, we should maybe do another podcast on that because there's a lot to talk about there. You're right. Man, I had a good question.
You did. You did. I love it. This is why it's so fun and exciting. And this is, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So then probably one of the questions I was going to ask to start wrapping up was like, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who's jumping into this? And it sounds like we just gave them that, evaluate what you have already and how you're pricing them and who's the low margin and, seeing if you should invite them to be successful elsewhere. And when you do that and reprice it, they stick around. I've heard that story so many times. Clients are actually willing to pay more. You just don't even realize it until you tell them it's time.
Exactly. So, and did you convey the value, or are you just doing it really easy and they don't know what you're doing and they think, well, that's easy. I could probably take that back in-house and do it myself.
Right. Yep. Well, I actually kind of just did a wrap, but I want to ask you on the subject we've been talking about, how would you, final thoughts you have on it?
On
everything.
On CAS. Here's the thing. CAS is, again, the fastest growing revenue stream within firms, and a lot of practitioners are leaving firms and starting their own practices. It's a really exciting time, and I am very, very passionate about helping clients, helping them make money, grow their businesses. So I just feel like there's just a lot of people that have a lot of interest, and then you insert technology, and it's so fun. It's so fun. And so you just want to build it in the right way and still have what we call, balance, if we still call it work-life balance.
Yes.
It's just a great industry for people to be in. And it's constantly busy, but we don't have the ups and downs of tax and audit. We're not working those hours. So it's just a great business line for practitioners and for firms too.
And I think you just said a good point there. And you and I talked about this a little before we record, but that whole work-life balance. In reality, if you are passionate about what you're doing, if you're enjoying the work, and actually we just did a survey on this, hours don't matter if you really enjoy what you're doing. Now, I'm not promoting work more hours.
Right.
That's not the thing, but I'm promoting follow your passion and get into an area you really enjoy. And I think you found that. I know I found that. And I think both of us want to help other people find that.
Absolutely. It's so fun. And you're in everybody's business and you're learning something new all the time. It's something new every day. It's a blast.
Yep. Well, believe me, start a podcast because you learn constantly. So
Yeah.
that is a lot of fun. All right. Well, two final things before we wrap up. Everybody gets this question. I always kind of preface it the same way, but I'm going to jump right into it this time because listeners probably hear it every single time the way I say it. But I love talking about what we're doing in the profession, but I really love hearing what people do outside of work, what their passions are, what they love doing when they're not, helping people build a CAS practice. So what are the things that you enjoy?
Oh, gosh. So I honestly love to cook. I cook a ton. We're the kind of like the home base for the entire family. So I'm cooking all of the time. I have 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks that are show dogs. And so I have a grand champion and a champion.
Oh, wow.
I know. So that's fun. It's a whole nother lifestyle. Like you wouldn't even,
Yes.
Yeah. And then we camp a lot. I live in Colorado, so we're always outside. I'm more of we call it mud season here in the summer versus skiing in winter. So yeah, that's what I do for fun. It's a blast.
Nice. I got to ask about camping. Tent, trailer, how do you do it?
we glamp. Yeah, we're glampers.
Okay. Right.
we have a trailer and kitchen and bathroom and shower. I don't know how they call it camping other than we're just in the woods without.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've evolved to the same thing. We have a travel trailer that's got everything in it that you just mentioned. It's a little mini home. We used to have tents. We went from tents to pop-up trailer and pop-up trailer to travel trailer. And
that's exactly what we did. And we kept, it's funny, we kept the pop-up trailer as the guest house.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually we had that for a while too. We just sold our pop-up last summer. It was very emotional because we had it. I mean, when the kids were born, basically, is when we bought it. It was emotional. But the cool thing was we sold it to a couple who had 3 young kids. And it was like, oh, someone else now gets to create experiences and memories in this pop-up. So that was pretty cool.
It's so cool.
Yep.
I love it.
All right. Well, we
I
can
don't
talk
know that
camping.
I couldn't go back to the pop-up now, though, I don't think.
I'm liking the travel trailer at this point. So, and then lastly, if people want to hear more about your businesses, what you're doing personally, and what you're doing with the community, what's best places for them to look?
Yeah, thank you. So Infinite Ties is infinite-ties.com. So check out our CAS community and our membership. It's really valuable and inexpensive. And so we're just trying to, like I said, bring everybody together for the greater good. And then for the advisors, it's the infinite-advisors.com.
All right. Awesome. Well, Christine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy.
Great conversation, and I appreciate you being on the Unique CPA.
Thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us today on the Unique CPA. You can find the show notes for today's episode and learn more about TriMerit at theuniquecpa.com. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting app. And join us next time for more expertise and insights on the Unique CPA. ProfessionalProductions.net